Hi everyone, it's me again, and I'm back with more Audi TT Mk2 content. What I'm going to show you today is the top 5 things to look for when you have rear knocking sounds. Thanks for everyone so far who have subscribed, I really appreciate it. This time around, I've got something unfortunate that has happened, and my car has developed a knocking sound, which is happening on the rear driver's side or the rear right hand side of the car. Let's have a look.
So the number one thing to check would be your shock mounts, as this is what holds the shocks to the body. They're the two small bolts up the top that you want to check, and also the big bolt at the bottom from underneath the car. I'm also checking here first because this is where I could hear the noise being transmitted. It sounded like it was coming from somewhere up the top or from ear height. Number two thing to check would be for a leaking shock absorber. As you can see there, there's no oil coming out, so that's fine. This is a sway bar bush, however, if this was faulty, you'd usually hear a creaking type sound from underneath. Moving on to item number three, sway bar drop links. So these can become worn or the nuts can become loose, giving you some knocking sounds, but again, these sounds would be heard from underneath the car. Component number four to check would be the trailing arm bush. In this little snippet, you can see it's up there as a purple bush. I've already replaced this, so this shouldn't be my issue. Item number five to check would be the trailing arm bracket bolts. You can see there are four of them here, and this is where I found my issue. I must have forgotten to tighten them up properly when I upgraded the trailing arm bushes. So now we know what to look for. Here's how to gain access to those areas in the rear suspension to check for those possible rear suspension faults. There's going to be several T20 torque screws to remove, two 10mm plastic nuts, and then a plastic push rivet to remove as well. Now, if the arch liner doesn't fall out by itself or isn't easily removable, just make sure you double check the area again, because you might have missed one of those fittings, as it should just fall out as you've seen just there. Now that you've got the wheel arch liner off, you're able to access all of the components that we looked at in the list at the very beginning of the video quite easily. What I'm doing here now is I'm just testing that suspension strut to see if there is any movement by jacking up from the bottom of the control arm. Now I'm just going through and checking all of the other items on the checklist, and I can see that, everything under here looks pretty much fine and bolted onto each other tightly. Now this is where I'm checking the four trailing arm bracket bolts, and you can see here that when I'm attempting to undo them, they're just loosening up very, very easily. So that's not right. Now I'll show you where I could see the biggest hint that this bracket was moving. You can see there that there's a line where there's no dirt, indicating that there is indeed movement with this bracket and that it's not tightened down properly. So I go into Elsewin and find the correct torque specs. Now to have the bracket fit in the correct spot where it was before, I did need someone else to help me tighten the bolts down while I move the bracket into place. However, the best recommendation here is to get the rear end realigned. So now it's just time to set the torque wrench to 50 Newton meters. After the four bolts have been torqued up, they do require an extra quarter turn as well. Alright, cool. So now that's all done. It's time to check that the repair has been successful or not. So it was over this little bump into my driveway where I could hear the knocking sound at the top of the strut. Cool, so I'm happy with that. Seems like the knocking sound has disappeared. So they're the top 5 things to check when there's a knocking sound from the rear end of your Audi TT Mk2. Hope that helps you out, and don't forget to press the subscribe button for more Audi TT Mk2 mods and fixes. Bye.